Right. So before I get started, there are ICE tasks that are available. So just a reminder on those, and that those must be completed at some point as soon as possible, please. We are starting to get to the point where we are actually recording ICE marks. So we do need to finalize that at some point. That is part of your final mark, 10% of your final mark. So if you haven't looked yet, the ICE tasks are short. They are 5 multiple choice questions or matching questions or something similar. So it's really very small, very short tasks, just sort of to make sure that you grasp the basic contents for each chapter. Okay. In terms of, before I carry on with the rest, I am busy marking the POEs. I'll give detailed feedback on that during our next session before the submission of the final POE, so that you guys have some time to actually just make corrections if you need to do so. All right. Any questions from your side? Anything you're worried about?
Not at the moment, ma'am.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So when we look at chapter 8 and we look at internal staffing, so the first thing that we want to discuss is what do we mean by internal staffing?
I think it's hiring from inside the company.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So we have existing staff in our company, and now we have a vacancy or a new position that becomes available. And instead of now going through all the schlep of recruiting people from outside the organization, newspaper ads, LinkedIn ads, Facebook or wherever, whatever electronic means we use to advertise positions, instead of doing that, we first look internally to the staff that we already have working for us in order to fill the vacancy or the new position or whatever the case might be. So in terms of why we would do that, there are a number of reasons, and the textbook touches on some of them. But one of the things would be keeping your employees happy. So if we think about new positions becoming available, if we have somebody internally who has the ability to do the job, but we rather go outside the organization to appoint somebody right off the get-go, what does that tell the people inside the organization in terms of what I think of them and what I think of their abilities? Do you think that I'm sending a message of confidence to them, or am I potentially sending a negative message?
Yeah, it's like downgrading, or they don't have the specific qualifications that's needed for the position.
Exactly. So if we have people that can do the job, but we are ignoring them and not allowing them the chance to do the job, now suddenly I've got questions as to, I've been loyal to this company. I've worked here for a long time. Why are you overlooking me? Why is somebody else from outside a better fit? If we do not have the skills inside the organization, if we don't have the knowledge, and sometimes, especially, we're going to, with chapter 14, start touching on the fourth industrial revolution. There are new jobs that are being created. So you could potentially, with some of those, have a situation where you haven't got people inside the organization that have the skills or the knowledge. That's fair enough. But if you've got people inside the organization, then you kind of sending a bit of a negative message to them in terms of rewarding them for their loyalty if you don't at least seriously consider one of the guys you've got available.
Yes.
The other thing you need to look at is job security. If we start hiring people from outside as opposed to from inside my organization, I now wonder, but am I maybe replaceable at some point? Are you at some point going to say to me, sorry, you haven't got a job, and then rather offer that job to somebody from outside? And job security is a huge thing at the moment. It's a huge thing worldwide. I mean, if we look at America at the moment, America is absolutely crazy in terms of what they're doing at the moment, in terms of get just I mean, they haven't got the strict labor laws that we do. But I mean, they just literally, some people found out they didn't have a job because they pitched up at work and they wanted to swipe their key card to get into the building, and their key card wasn't working anymore. That's how they found out, oh, you don't have a job anymore. So these guys are just being let go left, right, and center. So there's no job security for these guys at all, none whatsoever. Which is kind of scary. And I mean, we know that our economy isn't fantastic and not doing particularly well. So by rather opting to hire people from internally, if any vacancies or whatever exist, we kind of allowing for a bit more a sense of job security amongst our staff. And I'm going to very quickly touch on the impact of employee confidence on productivity. If people are constantly worried about whether or not they have a job, their productivity somehow is going to suffer. The quality of their work somehow is going to suffer. So if we can somehow create that feeling of having some job security, that's directly impacting on quality of work and productivity. Employee attitudes and concerns. So again here, if you are staffing from outside, if you're considering staffing from outside, and we're looking at employee, let's start with attitudes. If we're looking at their attitudes, how would attitude of employees have an impact on how I staff?
They won't work as productively.
Yeah, so we're looking at how you view things,
Yes.
how willing you are to change, how willing you are to look at new things. And if you're not willing to make changes, or if you anti-change or something like that, then I might need to look outside the
Yes.
organization to hire people. Concerns in terms of the people that I'm bringing in, concerns in terms of own ability to do the job. How does that impact on things?
Maybe it would change the work environment in terms of internal conflict with the old staff members.
Yeah. So if there's any sort of conflict, I mean, I think we've all been in a situation where you express certain concerns regarding certain employees and their ability to do certain jobs, or that sort of thing.
Yes.
So you definitely need to consider that as well. If you you are potentially considering hiring somebody in a specific position, but the people that they will be supervising have concerns regarding who you plan to put there, you need to think about that very, very carefully.
Yes.
Um, before you do that. If the person that you are putting into the position has concerns about their ability to do the job, how does that change things?
As in the new person, like from not internal staffing.
So now internal staffing. So if my boss comes to me and says to me, listen, we're going to move you to a different department. And I go, but listen, I don't really understand. I don't know how that department works. Or I'm not entirely sure I'm qualified to run that department or qualified to be moved to that
Okay.
department. How does that change things?
I think the what can I say? I think the company can make employee training.
Yeah. So if I have the ability to train this person, if I have
Yes.
the ability to lay the person's fears, I mean the concern might be valid. But if I have an ability to address the concern,
Yes.
then I can potentially stick
And the
to
resources.
exactly, and the resources, time, money, the
Yes.
people to do the training. Then internal might be the way to go as opposed to going externally. Very, very
Yes.
good. Employment equity. How does that factor into things?
Employment equity, does it have to do with okay, it's a little bit, it does touch on labor relations as well.
Yeah.
On equality in the workplace.
Mm. So the Employment Equity Act, what is the aim of the Employment Equity Act?
I wrote this now, I forgot I wrote it. Let me just see quickly here.
No worries. It's very much in the news at the moment because they made amendments that are very, very, very stringent.
Employment equity.
So who does it cover?
The employees.
Employees, but which specific employees actually are sort of singled out, do I want to say, in the
Women or
Yep,
people with disabilities.
yep. And
Mm,
people that are defined as
race.
race. There we go. Black people. So under black people, they would be Africans and colored people and Asians.
Yes.
So according to the Employment Equity Act, it is to redress issues from the past. So one of the big reasons why they are now trying to make change or have implemented this new Employment Equity Amendment Act is because the argument is, but we haven't really got a lot of black people or people from designated groups, because they black people, women, people with disabilities are considered designated groups. We don't have enough of those people in leadership, top leadership positions. So we want to change that. We want to correct that, which is understandable. The problem that you've got internally is if, let's say, for instance, I've got an extremely well qualified, extremely experienced female engineer.
They're going to stereotype because it's a woman.
You potentially have the stereotyping issue, but
Yes.
now, because remember, the law now says I need to give preference when I'm employing those people. So this person has a rare skill, and she happens to be a female. And now let's say she's a black female. Now we're starting to look at somebody that, from an employment perspective, is pretty much, that is the gold standard of what you want to employ. Everybody wants her. Do you follow sports much?
No.
Music? Do you like what artists do you like?
Sam Smith.
Sam Smith. Okay, now Sam Smith has won awards and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay, so if I can get Sam Smith to record a title track for a movie song, I mean he's done the James Bond song. Okay, but now there's and he won an Oscar for it if memory serves. So let's say now there's another big movie coming out, and I've got this song that's going to be on the soundtrack. It's going to be the feature song and that sort of thing. And I've got a whole list of artists, and all they are like, yeah. And then one of the people on the list is Sam Smith. I'm going to gun for Sam Smith.
Yes.
Why? Because he's well known, he's popular, he's won
Yes.
awards. So everybody wants him.
Like
Now,
head hunting.
exactly. So if you're sitting with somebody that is fitting all the requirements in terms of they are highly skilled, and especially if they've got a rare skill, something like engineering, I mean, specifically, certain fields of engineering, you only have a handful of genuine experts and people that are like literally top of their field. So if you happen to be one of those people and you happen to be black and you happen to be female, everybody wants you.
Yes.
So they're headhunting you left, right, and
Yes.
center. They're offering you crazy salaries. They're offering you crazy packages. They're
Yes.
offering you crazy benefits, everything. So for me as an organization now, I want to do whatever I can to make that person happy. Because if I can keep that person happy, I'm hoping I can keep that person working for me.
Yes.
Because firstly, this person is highly skilled. So there's no way this person is not a benefit to my organization. There's no way.
Yes.
Secondly, this person ticks all the boxes legally I'm required to tick.
Yes.
It's a bit dangerous because you kind of also now, you don't want to turn a person into just a tick box. That's cruel and unfair. But
Yes.
the reality also is that there are boxes legally you are required to tick, and especially now with the changes, they're talking about severe fines and so forth that will be imposed on companies. So if I've got people like that in my midst, I want to keep them at all costs. So I'm going to, if there's any chance of promoting that person, I'm going to do that. If that person says to me, I want that person and this person and that person to work under me, I'm going, yes, go for it, take them, because I want to keep that person happy. So um, that's if you've got that person inside your organization. If you don't have that person inside your organization or similar person inside your organization that ticks the boxes, you're going to have to go externally.
Yes.
So that is why when you are hiring people, you also need to look at these things. How can I um, progress this person? I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but Coca-Cola is very, very good at this. So when you start working at Coca-Cola, they actually do a whole bunch of with your we've done induction, all those things. As part of the induction and um, getting the person settled into the company. As part of that, they have discussions with you. They do little psychometric tests and things.
Yes.
And based on that, they actually come up with a plan for your future in that company. So they look at your interests and your qualifications, and they say, okay, right, based on your interests, based on your our discussion with you, based on your skills, within 5 years, we want you to be the regional manager of the marketing division or whatever. Um, so in order to get you there, this is the plan. We are going to send you on these courses this year. Next year, we're going to send you on those courses and we're going to have you start shadowing this person and this person. Year three, this is what we're going to do. So they've got a whole plan in terms of how to get you to position X. And they actually follow through on it. They're very adamant, very dedicated to following through with it. So when I am in the company, I know exactly where I'm going, and I know exactly what is going to happen for me to get there. So in terms of keeping people, in terms of and like I said here, I mean, the, obviously when they are hiring initially, we're looking at equity targets and all those things. So they have specific plans to uplift these individuals.
And to
And in terms
retain
of,
them.
and exactly, because I know, hang on, these guys are listening to me. These guys are invested in me. These guys are investing in me. And they're making sure that that investment is actually happening. It's not a case of, yeah, we'll check back on you, and then they don't. They do. So I'm going, hang on, this is fantastic. There's growth chances for me here. And they're not just looking at what they want, they're looking at what I want. So you want to stay there. That they actively working to retain me here. This is amazing. So in terms of that, they're doing a very, very good job in terms of keeping the people and like I said, also systematically building a workforce that meets the legislative requirements. And also, as you say now, with the retainment, if somebody now approaches somebody in Coca-Cola, I'm going to think twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times before I say, okay, I'm going to leave Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Because if I know they're investing in me and I know they're keeping their word, why would I necessarily want to go some? There are reasons why you want to potentially go elsewhere. But I mean, it's making it a bit more difficult for the other people to actually lure me, to headhunt me, to move away from Coca-Cola. If they're ticking all the boxes here in terms of keeping me happy and keeping me satisfied and all that. So that's something else that you need to look at is your employment equity. And if you haven't got equity staff in certain positions, then you are going to have to look externally. But the idea is that you hire in such a way that you can systematically, as Coca-Cola amongst other places do, um, work these people into positions, train these people into positions that you are meeting the targets, you are productive, the people are happy, and. Okay.
And internal staffing saves the company costs.
Exactly, because you're not wasting time and money on hiring. A lot of places these days, if you look at advertisements, very few companies actually advertise themselves. They get staffing solutions to do it for them, external recruitment companies, and you're
Yes.
paying those guys.
Yes.
That's the problem. You're paying those guys. So as you say, 100%, you are saving money by not having to go and look externally. And that's also why the whole recruitment and selection process is so important, to make sure that you've got the staff you can systematically work up through the organization and staff you can work with. Right. Well done. And then lastly, your labor union. Your labor union, remember and you spoke about labor relations and those things before. We know that unions, some of them are a bit more militant than others.
Yes.
Um, and we know that they fight tooth and nail for the staff that they represent. So if they're
Yes.
representing staff at a specific company, you can bet your bottom dollar they are going to fight tooth and nail that if there are positions that open up, that those positions are given first and foremost to internal staff members. If the position warrants it. I'm not talking about entry level positions now, um, although that might be necessary here and there. They're going to fight tooth and nail that the people that are already in the organization, that they actually go ahead and that they're being promoted. Because otherwise they're failing their mandate.
And labor unions do give a company a bad publicity. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it just shows that the company is not invested in its internal staff.
and they're very quick to say that, as you pointed out. They've got
Yes.
no qualm standing in front of a news reporter or on social media, blatantly calling a company out because
Yes.
they are breaking aspects of labor law or treating their employees unfairly or refusing to give employees a fair chance at positions. And it's happened in the past where they've done this.
Whereas they don't have maybe the needed qualification for the
Ex-
position.
Exactly. Now, that is also an interesting point that you bring up, because if you look at the Employment Equity Act, the Employment Equity Act actually says that a person, for them to be appointed into a position, they either need to be suitably qualified,
Yes.
meaning they already have the skills and the
Yes.
qualifications, or have the potential.
Yes.
And that is an important aspect that tends to get ignored. If they have the potential, you are under obligation, really, to
To
train them,
hire that person first.
to hire that person first, to train them up, to mentor them, and all those things. So that is what, as you say, the union's going to point out. But listen, you've got so and so. Yeah, they haven't got the skill or the qualification, but they've got the potential to do that. So hang on, we implore you to consider this person. And they can then put pressure on the employer to actually start taking steps to develop the person.
Yes.
So that's a very valid point. And like I said, that's kind of where Coca-Cola goes, you have the potential, we're going to start training you up. They come up with a whole training plan and development plan for you. But a lot of companies don't want to do that because it's time and it's money. But you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. And that's sort of also why constant evaluation of your staff is so important, seeing what
Yes.
they're interested in, seeing what their knowledge and skill levels are. And like I said, the union here plays an important part in terms of keeping the employer accountable
Yes.
and saying, but yeah, you want to
Yes.
go outside? We've got people inside. And they know these people. They deal with these people all the time, so they know who they've got and who they haven't got. Good point, solid point. Right. Any questions on any of this?
No, ma'am.
Fantastic. Right. So why do we do the internal staffing? We've kind of touched on this before, but the organization itself might be getting bigger.
Yes.
So there's growth in the company, we're expanding, we're creating new divisions, or the division is becoming bigger, and now all of a sudden I have to staff. So I might need to hire more staff, yes, but I also need to move certain staff members around.
Yes.
And then my obvious choice first is to look internally.
Yes.
Reorganization of the organization, certain departments might be closing down. Certain departments might be amalgamating. And in that case, instead of now hiring a new manager or whatever for the new department that's resulted because of the amalgamation, the two departments blending into becoming one, I look internally to see who can do the job. General and economic trends and other issues. So a specific division might be doing very, very well or very badly.
Yes.
And because of that, I now need to restaff somehow. And remember, if I'm saying that a division is doing badly, I might not necessarily close it, but I might change who I've got in leadership positions there.
Yes.
So I see somebody that maybe in the past in a different department took a department that wasn't doing well and turned that department into a really thriving department.
Yes.
I can now sit down with that person, have discussions and say, listen, would you be willing to potentially consider moving to that department and turning that department around? Is that something that would interest you? Is that something you feel that you potentially have the capability to do? That could be one reason. I might have a person who, when we spoke about job enlargement and all those things, I might have a person who, and a department where I can actually warrant having one person handle multiple departments, depending on what the job requires. And I could then look at a person again that has a proven track record of being able to handle something like that. That will be able to manage two departments at the same time, and then take that person.
Yes.
Um, I could be in a position where staff don't like a person that I have in a specific position. Or maybe I brought in a new person from outside, and my staff go and they say, but listen, this guy's an idiot. We don't like this person. This person's mean. This person's rude. Nobody respects this person. Or you just kind of noticing, but listen, nobody listens to that guy, but somehow, despite the fact that person X isn't actually in charge of this department, people are going to person X for advice. People are
Yes.
going to person X and listening to. Maybe I should move person X and promote person X. Or maybe I should give that position to person X instead. So there's various reasons why you might need to do that internally.
But that could
And
also cause internal conflict.
it could. So you need to look at what at the end of the day what the best thing will be for the company.
Yes.
Because we also need to realize that sometimes conflict is unfortunately necessary um, to bring about change. because we also need to look at, if I keep the person there who nobody likes, who nobody respects, what is the ultimate outcome going to be? If I have staff members that are fantastic but are threatening to resign, am I going to lose them just because I'm too afraid to offend somebody else? Because I'm too
That's a
afraid
problem.
to. Exactly. So you need to kind of look at the situation and, like I said, make a judgment call. And sometimes it's a difficult call, and it's not a popular call, and it's in terms of that person that you are basically moving out. Um, but you need to look at what is best for the company, what is best for the department. And like I said, that's not necessarily going to be the easy decision or the nice decision to make, but you have to do it. If a person isn't performing, if a person hasn't got the respect of the people who they work under, you've got a problem.
Yes.
And like I said, in that case, you might need to make, and this is by no means an easy decision, make no mistake. You might need to make the difficult decision of letting somebody go
Yes.
because they're toxic. Simon Sinek said something once. People think sometimes that if I have um, if I bring a toxic person into an environment, and everybody else in that environment are not toxic, that the non-toxic people are going to turn around the toxic person, and the toxic person is going to become non-toxic. But the opposite is true. The toxic person, that bad apple, is going to infect
Fill the
everybody
hole.
else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you need to be aware of that. And like I said, there are a lot of guys that are in leadership positions that straight up say, get rid of the negative person, because
Yes.
all they do at the end of the day is they corrupt everybody else. The other people aren't going to rub off onto this person. This person that you don't want rubbing off on everybody else is going to do that. That's just the way it is. That's amongst other things why you've got the big problems in ESCOM, because you've got a bunch of um, well, it's been proven, unfortunately, corrupt officials. And that's just kind of, it's become a culture. So now getting rid of that and fixing it, that's why the poor dude who's in charge of ESCOM now is having such a torrid time, because he's trying to get rid of the rot. And unless basically you fire the entire lot, it's extremely difficult to do so. So you need to make that judgment call and say, well, look, this person isn't working. This person is going to end up making everybody else negative, and it's going to negatively impact on everybody else. So I rather get rid of that person and make sure everybody else is happy, and move around if you
Yes.
need to. Mm, that's a nice dark conversation. But yeah, like that's the unfortunate reality. And like I said, nobody likes that. That is literally the worst conversation on the planet to have to say to somebody, listen, I'm sorry, I'm letting you go. But like I said, you need to look at what is at the end of the day best for the company.
Like when I was working for this NWJ, it's a jewelry company.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
I was appointed as the assistant manager, and then I had my partner as the manager. So with the banking records, we had to bank daily the money that we used to make.
Uh-huh.
So we do a bank reconciliation, and it needed two signatures. One is assistant signature and the manager's signature. So the manager copied my signature and placed it on the bank reconciliation, and he didn't bank the money for like maybe a week. He'd take the money for himself. So we had to let the manager go because
Yo. Yeah. No, that's an excellent example. I mean, how that's you know from personal experience how awkward that is. You
yes,
did nothing wrong. Yet the problem is usually when we didn't do any, we still feel like the person that somehow did something we shouldn't. We should feel, oh, shame, sorry, I'm sorry that you're getting fired. That's just that's almost a human reaction in
yes,
a lot of cases. Um, and we shouldn't actually. because that person did something that was incredibly wrong, and now they're pulling you into the mess, and you've got nothing to do with it.
Yeah, because it looked like I was also signing for
Exactly.
the bank recon.
And that happens a lot. It happened to a friend of mine that works at SARS. There was a whole investigation. He was off on suspension for I don't know how long while they were wrapping up the investigation. Because now, unfortunately, he gets dragged into the mess, and he's got nothing to do with it. So it unfortunately happens very, very frequently. And like I said, it's a mess. It's honestly, it's ridiculously unpleasant. Nobody likes it. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for the company. If your manager continued doing what he was doing, I
We were
mean,
gonna both end up getting fired.
you both would have gotten fired. The branch probably would have closed down. I mean, heaven knows. There's where I live here in Gqeberha, one of the spa branches got an external auditor in, and this auditor, I think it's 52 million that
Yeah, that's a
he
lot.
that he moved to his own bank accounts, because he had a gambling problem. And by the time that they figured out, but listen, we're losing this money because now he's an auditor, so I guess somebody didn't check something.
Yes.
By the time they found it out, I mean, that was crazy. And obviously you let that guy go because I mean that's a summary dismissible offense, gross
Yes, you
dishonesty, all
can't
those
come
things.
back from such so much money being lost.
But now you also think that this guy's he had a gambling problem, which I mean any addiction is a disease. Um, so on the one hand, you sort of maybe feel a little bit sorry for the guy, but on the other hand, so it's that human element. It's not
Yes.
a pleasant situation. And like I said, now his wife gets dragged into it and all those things. So and that they've got kids and it's ugly. It's ugly. But at the end of the day, you can't carry on with millions being stolen.
Yes.
And as you'll probably be fully aware, it starts with small amounts and then it systematically gets more, 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 more. Where does
That
it
was the
end?
thing with the manager I was working with. He even bought a car with stealing money from the company.
Yike. Yeah. And unfortunately, I would love to say that this is not something that we frequently see, but it's something that we frequently see.
Yes.
And you have, like I said, unfortunately, somebody must be brave. Somebody must take the leap. Somebody must make the, um, what do you call it, the unpopular decision
Yes.
to call them out and to do something. And like I said, it can be something that is as severe as you mentioned now, which is theft and fraud.
Yes.
It could be something less severe, just the person is a bad manager, is a toxic manager, bullies, is narcissistic, bullies people, calls them names.
And then that
Um,
causes turnover
there,
of
yeah,
employees.
there was a techie town here, also in town, where the manager had actually disciplined a staff member. They had the person go and stand in one of the display windows with like a sign or something, and a client saw it and took a photograph and put it on social media, and apparently it came out afterwards the staff turnover at that specific branch was something ridiculous, but
Yes.
nobody asked questions. Why are these people leaving? Why are they unhappy? It was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of how it works. And if it wasn't for this one person that actually took this photograph and then made it basically go viral on social media, and now normal Joe so public were going, this is disgusting, how dare you
Yes.
treat your staff like this.
So
And
it
these
can
people are
fall under sexual harassment.
exactly, it was it wasn't sexual harassment, fortunately, but it was
Yes.
definitely harassment.
Yes.
um this poor person was being embarrassed in front of, very publicly, in front of everybody that's walking past the store, in front of their fellow staff members, and they were too scared inside the company to speak out because of the
Yes.
repercussions, because they were like blatantly told, if you say something, if you don't want to work here, go find another job. And we know jobs are scarce, so what are you going to do? You're going to keep quiet just to save your job. So stuff like that needs to be, like I said, it would have taken one and I can understand why people are hesitant and sensitive. I'm not judging. Um, it would have taken one brave person to sort of come and see this and actually, stand up against it and say something.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, internally sometimes, like I said, you need to make shifts. Um, get rid of somebody or make moves just to um save the business basically. All right. So and then the last one, just attrition, normal attrition. People resign, people pass away,
Yes.
people reach retirement age, or they go on early retirement. Um, people decide to change careers,
Yes.
um, or there's an adverse life event. Sometimes, somebody's spouse or child or whatever becomes gravely ill, or suddenly develops a disability from there's an accident, they're suddenly disabled, and have to basically resign your job to go and take care of that person.
Yes.
Um, so attrition can take various reasons or have various reasons, and then obviously need to replace that person. And this is where again, especially if it's more senior positions, where you look internally. Interestingly, and I need to find this case study. I had it and then I lost it, but there was a company overseas where all the top management, financial chief financial officer, um, all those guys were on a plane, and the plane crashed, and all of them passed away.
Yeah.
And after that, they actually it's like an unwritten business rule. People that are on senior positions in organizations do not travel on the same plane or use the same mode of transport. Because basically what had happened is the entire top managerial structure of that organization was
Yes.
destroyed in one fell go. And they
Yes.
actually did an interview with a guy who had to go into the company and salvage the company. Because now your CEO is dead, all your top managers are dead. The people that worked under them, firstly, you've got the skills issue.
Yes.
They don't necessarily, nobody had actually thought about proper succession planning for some of those things. So now suddenly you shoved into a job because you're the
Yes.
closest person to that job. You're shoved into the job and you've got no idea what you're doing.
Yeah, there's lots of pressure now.
So you need to figure out what you're doing. And then in addition to that, and that is the interesting aspect of the interview, with this guy was saying, I'm going into a company where the people are grieving because that person that managed them wasn't just a manager. The person was a confidant. The person was, to a certain degree, a friend. And that person's gone. Their mentor is gone. Their friend is gone. And now now all of a sudden, oh, by the way, you are now replacing this person. So these people are grieving, and now they're going like, but I lost my mentor, I lost my friend,
Yeah,
I lost a
unfortunately,
person.
business has to go on.
Exactly. So this guy was like, we have to work from the viewpoint that, life goes on.
Yes.
Um, but at the same time, I also can't ignore the human element. So the
Yes.
entire case study was an extremely interesting look at how do you deal with that, because the whole thing is like how he had to manage the fact where on the one hand he had to be very strict and say, listen, and I'm being very flippant here, and this is not entirely what he said, but get on with it.
Yes.
But also have some sympathy for the fact that this poor person literally is grieving, and I need to manage that grief also to a certain degree. So I need to manage both the business aspect and the human aspect, without being insensitive to either. Because, like I said, the business needs to go on.
Yes.
If we don't get this place up and running very fast, this place is closing down.
Yes.
And how we actually manage that. So um, that is where your mentorship, where your succession planning becomes extremely important with the internal staffing. That you have a plan, in terms of how you proceed and how you carry on.
So this means all companies need to have their staff ready to move on to the next position for anything that can happen.
Yes, exactly. Especially in the modern economy. Um, if you start slacking off, there are a whole bunch of competitors waiting in the
Yes.
wings to take over your business market share and your
So
customer
staff
base.
training is very important.
Yes, and mentorship
Yes. And
and
job shadowing.
yes, that's part of the mentorship program. Very good. Where you've got somebody that's waiting in the wings. That can potentially, that if something happens, this person becomes sick, they can quickly take over. It's not a problem.
Yes.
When this person does leave, they've got the acumen to take over. In government, we see it a lot. They've got these shadow ministers.
Yes.
And part of the job is obviously overseeing the other person and making sure that they don't just do stuff that they're not supposed to be doing. But part of it also is that if something does happen, we're
The
not
person
suddenly
already
sitting in,
knows what to do.
exactly, we're not suddenly sitting without a finance minister altogether and now
Yes.
everybody goes, oh shit, but now what?
Yes.
That's why you've got a deputy president.
Yes.
If something happens, you don't suddenly have like, oh shit, but now what? Um, I mean, like I said, anywhere it'll have disastrous consequences. So that's why it's so critically important. And in terms of looking at that, this kind of leads into the next conversation. Why do we staff internally? What is the benefit to staffing internally?
So it's costs for the company. It cuts costs.
It cuts costs.
Yes.
I don't have to recruit somebody, and I don't really have to waste money training somebody.
Yes.
And also because and why is that? If the person's already in the company, what are they picking up?
Pardon?
If a person's already in the company, what are you learning about the company?
That the company is invested in its internal staff for training.
So you're training them. So the person knows how the company operates.
Yes.
You know where to go. If you've got a question on this, I go to that person. If this must be done, this is the system we use, and that is how I use the system. Um, I know the culture of the company. I know the
Yes.
people in the company. I know that that person there is extremely sensitive.
Yes.
So I cannot just go to that person and say, you're doing a rubbish job. Pick it up. I need to be a bit more tactful about it. But then I know the other person doesn't do this whole, hi, how are you doing today? Listen, I was kind of noticing that your numbers aren't quite. They don't want that. They
Yes.
literally want somebody to say to them, listen, your numbers are rubbish. Pick it up.
Yes.
So they know those personalities, they know the culture, they know where to go for what. And that, as you say, it saves a lot of cost, it saves a lot of time.
Yes.
Um, and basically, you've got somebody that can hit the ground running, which is what you want
Yes.
if you're staffing internally, or at least will need minimal
Yes.
interference,
Yes.
minimal
Yes.
assistance.
Yes.
And you also hopefully have some sort of buy-in from the other people. Um, you might have seen this where if somebody suddenly gets a promotion or whatever, and it's especially if it's a well-liked, well-respected person, everybody's happy
Yes.
and everybody's supporting that person. Everybody's on board with that person. I mean, that's fantastic. That's like literally the best case scenario ever.
So it also promotes the work environment or quality
Yeah,
of work life.
yeah. Because I mean, I see now. Hey, listen, they reward people internally here. Maybe if I work hard, one day when
Yes.
I'm big, I'll also be the chief or the whatever. There's hope for
Yes.
me. Yeah. So
So it motivates the staff.
exactly, it's a motivating factor. It improves morale. It
Yes.
improves, like I said, immediately productivity, quality, all those things going up. Okay. So we've listed some of the benefits to a certain degree now of internal staffing. What are some of the problems, the detractors of internal staffing?
I didn't get that, ma'am.
So we've spoken about some of the advantages, some of the good things about getting people from inside the organization. What is potentially a negative thing about taking people from inside the organization?
Um, they might take advantage of. They might take advantage of maybe getting late to work because they already know the work environment.
Yeah, there's that I had the word now and it completely left me. Um, it's not nonchalance now. Just a don't care attitude. I am here. What are they going to do? Fire me? No. Yeah.
Yes,
Complacency. That's the word I'm looking for. Complacency. So like, why should I bother? I'm not gonna, work too hard. I'm not gonna study too hard. I'm not gonna try too hard. I am here.
because the company needs me.
Yeah, the company needs me. They need me more than I need them. So,
Yes.
what else?
Um, the company might be disadvantaged of getting internal staff that doesn't have qualification that an outside person that would have.
Yeah. If you're looking internally, you might be limiting yourself in terms of
Yes,
the qualifications and the skills
yes,
and the expertise that people have. Somebody that's been outside the organization they bring in different skill sets
ideas.
and different, yes, exactly, different ideas. Um, One of the things that we sometimes notice, especially if we're looking at universities and them hiring, is it's actually sort of seen as half a negative if all your academic staff receive their training at exactly the same institute. So let's say,
Yes,
for instance, I work at UCT, and I did my undergrad at UCT, I did my postgrad at UCT. My only experience in life, in terms of any sort of training, is UCT,
yes. So
which
it
means
doesn't bring differentiation.
exactly. So I'm just going with the flow. This is how we do things. And I carried on. Whereas if I did my undergrad at Wits, or even just I did maybe my undergrad at UCT, but my postgrad at Wits, and I now work at UCT, I've been exposed to how Wits does things, or how UJ does things, or how Rhodes University does things, how the University of the Free State does things. Hell, I might have worked in corporate for a little while
Yes,
in addition to that. So I'm bringing all that experience of this is how they do it there, this is how they do it here, this is how they do it at that place. I bring all of those things to my work environment. So I'm not I almost want to say brainwashing is the wrong word, but it's kind of almost that brainwashing, this is how we do that one way
or
street thinking.
uniform.
Yes, uniform thinking. This is how we do things here, and nobody can think outside of the box. You haven't
Yes,
got the experience. You just kind of assume this is how you do things.
yes,
Whereas if you've gone elsewhere, you see, but hey, you can actually do things in that
yes.
way, and it
Learn
works.
new things. Yes,
Yeah. So there's an out of the box thinking that comes from bringing in people from outside the organization, because at some point you kind of and I noticed that with myself as well. So that's sort of why I try. If the moment that I start seeing it, then I'm like, okay, go and broaden your horizons elsewhere a little bit.
yes,
Go and do contract work somewhere else, or this or that, or just go and study something at a different place, just to sort of see how the other side lives, if I can put
get
it
a
that way.
different experience or
Exactly.
perspective.
Because then I look at my job from a fresh perspective. I look at my
Yes,
organization from a fresh perspective. And things that I went like, oh, okay, that's just how things are done. I go, but hang on, that's not fully productive.
yes,
Or actually, what we're doing here is completely counterproductive,
yes,
folks. We need to change. So there's a detractor, a negative aspect to internal staffing as well, because there's a very real threat that you create this almost boxed in culture where um, everything is always done in exactly the same way. You're not bringing in fresh ideas. Whereas
yes.
somebody that comes in from externally, like I said, they bring in hopefully fresh ideas and fresh thinking and all that. So that's sort of the big detractor that you've got from just looking internally. You potentially limit yourself to a very linear style of thinking, um, and not bringing in the fresh ideas. It's not a given, but that is often what we see what happens if we're not careful
In the long run.
in the long run. Yeah. And you need to, and like I said, especially in an environment where you need to stay competitive, you don't want people being stuck in a rut. This is how we do things. And we know people hate change. People don't like doing things in a different way. And we sometimes need to break away from that. We sometimes need to say, hold on, hold on, hold on. We need to look at this from a fresh perspective. And it's
Yes.
very difficult sometimes to look at it from a fresh perspective if you've only ever been exposed to the one environment. Whereas if you've gone elsewhere and you've seen other things, you've got different viewpoints. You're like, you know what? I actually saw that, and that might actually work here. How about we try that? Just for giggles, see if that works.
Yes.
See what effect we have. So it's important when you're looking at internal staffing, like I said, to consider those things as well. In terms of the approaches you can take to internal staffing, promotions, obviously when somebody now moves up in rank, demotion. Now demotion is again not something that you really particularly want to do, but this usually comes in one of two or three reasons. It can be disciplinary reason, whereas the person did something wrong and they now drop in rank.
Or just
Which,
coming in late or very often.
yeah, so it's a disciplinary measure. So we now start taking action. You know what, as you say, you're constantly late. We can't tolerate this anymore. We're demoting you because we need a team leader that's always on time, and you're
Yes.
not. Um, that's the negative reason for demotion. Um, the other reason potentially is that a person has obtained an injury or something happened, and physically or mentally they are not able to perform their former job anymore. And remember, the law says that we are not allowed to get rid of that person,
Yes.
especially if the person got hurt whilst doing my work,
Yes.
working for me. So I need to exhaust all options short of dismissal. And that might include changing the person's job or demoting the person. Um, so that's usually a disability issue that comes into play in terms of demotion. So you've got the negative where it's a really slap on the wrist, a punishment, and then you've got the option of, okay, this is the only option I have short of dismissing this person because they're physically not or mentally not capable of doing the old job anymore. I don't want to fire them, and I'm not legally, like I said, I have to jump through all the hoops to try and avoid firing the person. So the only option not firing this person is actually demoting this person. Transfers. So a person might move from one branch to a next. Somebody, maybe their husband or their wife got a job in a different town or even a different country, and now I transfer the person to, I don't want to lose the person, they're a good employee, so I transfer them to a different country or to a different city or town, but still within the company. Then layoffs and downsizing, retrenchments, and here I've got a little slide here just to sort of highlight the difference, because it's sometimes people use the terms interchangeably and it's not an interchangeable term. With layoffs, usually with layoffs, it's a temporary thing. So with COVID, there were layoffs because we know at some point things are going to return to normal and the workload and things will go back to normal. So the layoff is a temporary thing, but with retrenchment, it's a permanent thing
Yes.
unless something drastic happens. So that's sort of your difference there: layoffs versus retrenchments or downsizing, people resigning, quitting, or being dismissed because they did something really bad,
Yes.
and then lastly, retirement. So we kind of touched on those. Right. So I've kind of run out of time. Okay, maybe just very quickly looking at the benefits. We actually discussed a lot of this, so I'm not actually going to go over that again, but there's the list according to the textbook. So actually, yeah, we did manage to burn through chapter 8 or most of it. So yeah. Any questions from your side? Any comments?
No, ma'am.
That was a fantastic discussion, Cindy. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I love the input that you gave. It's always very useful if people talk from their own experience, because like I said, I come from a training and development background, so having somebody else come from a retail perspective and all that is absolutely fantastic and very
Yes, ma'am.
beneficial to everybody else as well. So thank you so much for that. I really enjoyed that session, and I hope
Thank
you
you,
did too.
ma'am.
And I hope you have a fantastic evening further and a great week. And then I'm hopefully seeing you in our next session.
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Any
All right,
questions,
ma'am. No,
comments,
ma'am.
drop an email.
Nothing.
And yeah, we'll chat again. Thank you so much. Have a great
Thank you,
evening.
ma'am. Bye
Cheers,
bye.
cheers.